Hello, Jordan.
Hello, Alexandra. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you today? What an
Yeah, I'm
exciting
great.
weekend, I should
It
say.
has been an exciting weekend, full of antics, one might
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
A
Where were
real.
you?
I was here. I was in the thick of it, as it were. But yeah, it wasn't really the adrenaline-filled roller coaster that it was being painted out to be. I was like, "What did you do?" I bought a slow cooker.
Oh, okay. Okay. My aunt's birthday is on the 24th on Saturday.
Oh
So I
God,
was in the
right.
country, north of Moscow, which is important.
Hmm.
And so we just celebrated all day. And then after we finished celebrating, we heard the news that nothing happened.
Well, the North would have been a good place to be,
Yeah, yeah, I
theoretically
think
speaking.
so. I think that's why
Oh,
we were so relaxed because we knew we're up
yeah.
north and the whole of Moscow lies between us and everything else. So
Yeah, no, that would have been a good position to be in.
yeah, exactly.
But nevertheless, I'm glad it's all over.
You know, never a dull day.
Well, that's for sure.
Let's do this, I suppose. How did you come to be an actor? And how did you come to be in Moscow? Because, all right, obviously, Russia is not your home country, and I know that acting is not your first vacation. So tell me about your journey.
My journey. So, having graduated, uh, I wanted to continue, how do I put it, pursuing my knowledge of the Russian language. I wanted to improve. I wanted to do better, perfect it, ideally. I realized that I wasn't able to do that back in England. So I took off, embarked on this adventure. I didn't want to return to Russia straight away, so I went to Uzbekistan. I spent a year there, did some teaching. Eventually, uh, found my way to
Beautiful,
Vladivostok.
beautiful, beautiful place, by the way.
It is.
Yes,
It
it
is a
is.
beautiful place. It's so hot though, so very
Yeah.
hot. Well, I remember the food. The food was great. The people were lovely, really pleasant, really friendly, very helpful. Um, I remember I played football there one time and I accidentally headbutted a wall because I was playing a little bit too passionately. And one of the players from the other team like immediately took me to see this doctor. It's like this private doctor and paid for everything. It was really, really nice show of hospitality and just so magnanimous on his part. Uh, anyway, yeah, I ended up in Vladivostok because again, I wanted to do a course there to prep me for then going on to do a master's degree. I saw that as like the ultimate challenge, if you will. And there was this uh, competition there, this countrywide competition for all students in the foreign languages department at these universities across Russia. They wanted us to reenact a scene from any famous Soviet film that's well known. And we chose Ivan Vasilievich меняет профессию.
Oh, okay. Did you play?
Uh, I I was the man himself,
Hmm. Okay.
um, because I was the only person who had a beard and long hair. So just aesthetically, I fit the role rather well at that time. Mhm. So that was my first experience in acting, I guess, just because, yeah, we had this very, very poorly put together green screen. We had all these fantastic pieces of clothing, like, I don't know, fake furs and stuff. I had this massive fur hat on my head. The stuff was wrapped around my body. And, had this banquet of food at the table. And then, of course, the green screen in the background. And me with my, at that point, still very poor Russian, I reenacted this scene. But I just had so much fun doing it. I remember not caring so much. Oh my God, am I going to pronounce this word right? How's it going to sound? I was just like, oh, this is so cool. the fact that this is all going to be shown somewhere. And it was. It was. We won the competition. I found out about this later. Once I'd left the university,
Okay.
we won the competition.
Cool.
And so that was like the first moment I was like, okay, yeah, I could get into this. I could do this. So then the year after, I moved to Moscow, and I took part in this thing called short order theatre. Short order theatre is basically where a play is written, rehearsed, and then acted all in the space of 24 hours. And usually these are groups of people who just got together who know nothing about each other whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I've heard about this. Yeah, from
It's great.
I think Sydney participated as well.
Sydney did participate. Yeah, I think that was where I first met Sydney, or at least she first met me. Maybe we didn't cross paths that night. We would have just seen each other on stage. But yeah, it's a great environment, really, really fun, great energy to it. Especially, it's not professional per se. It's for fans, it's for people who want to experiment, for people who wanted to improve their English, just have a bit of fun, try out their English in a different environment. So with that, there was always the added component of alcohol that always gave an additional positive shade, shall we say, especially just to make it more jovial, a light feeling, if you will. And the first time I did that, my friend, she said, give this a try, it'll be fun. It's only for a day, it's not going to take up all your weekend.
One very intense day.
One very, very intense day, yeah. And,
I can't imagine writers for this thing. Do they have to write overnight?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. So we meet Friday.
Like a miniature play.
Yeah,
written overnight and rehearsed on the next day. Okay.
The idea being that like the writers would go away the night before, stay up, go through their necessary processes, be that, I don't know, drinking 3 liters of coffee or 10 shots of vodka, or one of my friends, he'd always go to this Vietnamese restaurant and he'd get himself some food and he'd just sit there and write. And then, we'd meet in the morning. The writers would have gone to sleep by this point. We'd rehearse, maybe tweak a few parts, but we didn't spend too much time doing that. And then in the evening, we'd perform in front of a live audience, and we'd also get to watch the other acts. So it had a real communal feel to it, which was also cool. And the first time I did it, I was a sheriff. I had my leather jacket on. I had like these Chelsea boots to give me this cowboy feel, and this Stetson. And I was playing this detective.
Like the Wild West sheriffs.
Kind of like the Wild West, yeah. Had like a little sigil here, like the stars the Wild West sheriffs usually have.
Some props.
Some props are there for sure. And I just remember like the rush of energy, just like sheer elation that I got when I went on stage. I was just like, wow, it was crazy. It was unprecedented. And I remember coming off and just like still feeling the rush. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want this again. And then I just came to want it more and more. And every time that this short order came about, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll give this a try. And then it stopped being a case of give this a try. It's like, I want to do this. I want to experiment with as many roles as possible. And then one came up. It's like the first role that I had to audition for. I got that. That was called The When Lucy Lies. And then I went on to do The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yeah.
Where I played Algernon Moncrief. And that's been the longest standing theatrical performance that I've done so far. But again, like the first time I did that, I was like, wow, on cloud nine.
When did you have the premiere? What year?
The premiere of The Importance of Being Earnest.
Because it's been on for a while, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 2019.
Okay, so before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was before the pandemic. Our first round of shows, if you will, was before the pandemic, and then the cast changed a little bit. So we restaged it after the pandemic with a few tweaks. A few tweaks had been made.
Mm.
Yeah.
Your performance in it was, what He convinced me eventually. But I was leaning towards offering you the
Were
part
you?
anyway.
Oh,
But that
thank
was
you.
like the last one. Kind of, yeah. So yes, he can do it.
Well, I'm glad I did a good job that night then, and I
Yeah.
convinced you to
Yeah.
take me on.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm just curious. So before Ivan Vasilievich, was
Mhm.
acting on your mind at all? Like, you know,
Um,
as a child, like, did you play acts as a child or?
I guess I played games where I had to act, be it as like a child on the playground. It's like I don't know, running around, pretending that like you're fighting some monster and you have a sword and shield and you're dodging it, and creating some sort of a weird and wonderful name for the weapon. Um, I used to try and imitate people. I like to imitate voices, and with imitating voices, I guess you try and take on different
Yeah.
characters, experiment with that.
What did you want to become as a child? I mean, so
A
one answer was
paleontologist,
what?
a paleontologist.
Ah,
I I think at some point, yeah, I must have caught. No, it would have been a bit later. It was Jurassic Park.
ah,
I watched Jurassic
oh God,
Park,
yes.
and I thought this guy is
We
awesome.
we have that we have that in common. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I
I
was
think
like,
I just binge watched Prehistoric Planet. So what was your first impression of the play? Like before my input when you just read it? And I don't mean in the
didn't.
sense of like good, bad, or ugly or whatever, but more in the sense of what did you see in it? Like the story, the themes, what
Um,
resonated with you, if anything, or
that I didn't understand it at first. That it was
oh,
it was rather deep and
well,
well
that's bad
written,
news.
and I was like, okay, God, this is gonna take another read to actually get to grips with what's going on here. Uh, and then the more I read it, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. Um, I liked.
No, I don't want to leave the impression, for the for the people viewing that some kind of intellectual bullshit.
No, I'm not saying. Get rid of the word bullshit, and then yes, it's intellectual. I mean, there are some rather what's the word I'm looking for? Select and sophisticated jokes there, but for a theatrical audience, everyone will take something from it which they can relate to and or find funny. And I really like the balance of the characters. I especially liked that the main character in this play is female, and I liked this the idea, the role that my character Tom performs, in that he's not necessarily, I don't want to say in the background, but the main
Yes,
drive of his
definitely not.
character is to
Definitely not.
support support Amy, who I saw as just like the face of the play. If I imagine some sort of poster, I expect her face to be at the forefront of it, um, and maybe Vera's as well. I don't know. And I like that idea of being able to play a character like that and how I would experiment with it. Not making everything. How do I put this? So vibrant, so in your face, and playing a little bit more with the subtleties. And I also liked the juxtaposition of this between material that I'd done before. If we take Oscar Wilde into account here, it's a completely different play. For one, because this isn't completely fictitious. It's based on some real events, and it's much more current. And the opportunity to play less of a caricature and more of an actual person. Yeah, that was something that drew me to it, definitely.
How do you work on your parts in general? So before rehearsals, between them, do you do anything? or is it just what happens during the rehearsal process? Or if you do something, that what do you do? So how do you approach this preparation?
For me, it was a case of reading the script a lot. And let's say after I'd read every line, I'd think about what was his motive for saying something, and what was his aim in any particular scene. What did he want? Just the standard things, I guess. But then it would take more shape, of course, when I came to rehearsals. I think as much as I can try and picture it in my head, what I envisage a character to be, at the end of the day, it might not correspond with how you, as the director, envisages this character. So it's nice. It's nice to have that idea, that like preconception beforehand. But then when you actually get into the crux of it, into the thick of it, it could be completely different. So that's kind of fun. Sometimes it's a little bit jarring because you're like, yeah, but I thought that, and then you as a director are like, well, no, that's not how I saw it. So sometimes that you want to take that personally, but it's like, no, it's not about that. It's just a case of people have different visions, and that adds this challenge to it, which also makes it more fun. It's a case of, well, you were trying to take maybe an easier road. It's like you've got this person in your head already, you know what it's supposed to be. No, now you've got to play with it a little bit. Now you've got to think about it a little bit more, and that gives you the chance to add more layers. Yeah, which is essentially what I did with you, I guess. I mean, with Tom, just because Tom, but also the character of the officer. I remember we had some
Oh
fun
yeah,
with him.
you had two. So
Yeah,
that's a different question. Like, how did you differentiate?
how to differentiate. Yeah, yeah. Well, how did it differentiate? Mm. Well, simply by body language. That was one very, very good way to do it in this respect, just because, well, for one, I was playing somebody who's in a completely different time, um, and was just generally not a nice person in comparison to Tom. It's like he's a nice guy, he's got some issues, but he doesn't wish anybody any ill. He's not into torturing and the like. So you could say that Tom, you had to find the subtleties a little bit more, and then when it came to Vanya, it was just like you could go for it. But at the same time, there was also the potential and the tendency there to overdo it. When you just think, aha, I'm going to torture someone. That means I can be maniacal. Like, no, it doesn't always work
No,
like that.
that was my job to hold you back a little bit.
Yeah, you reined me in, and it works very, very
Well, I
well.
think we try it differently. We try different options, but in the end of the day, I think I'm definitely leaning towards more subtlety, and
Yeah,
especially in roles like that. Yeah. But I love that you fleshed him out so that he even has a name now. He doesn't in the original
I know it
script.
doesn't.
Yeah,
That
so
just
no.
in the course of our rehearsals, isn't it? We
Yeah,
came
yeah,
up with
yes. I remember we came up with it and we named him. But I think you
that
did.
cute little name. Yeah, I don't know why. I can't even remember how. But yeah, that name really stuck for me from then on. I guess giving a little face to the name made it a little bit easier to create this background to the character and to understand how he ticks. Because yeah, he was of course like he enjoyed torture, but I needed to give him some motivation for how he
In
was
my head, he
behaving
was
with
just doing
the
his
hero.
job. But whatever
Yeah,
twisted perception of
he
duty
was. He was
he might
definitely
have
doing
had.
his job. But I had to. the way I saw it, he was, even if he was doing his job, there was part of him that was taking some element of pleasure from that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it. Uh, yeah,
No,
but
I
no,
think
that was
in the end of the day, I think he looks really very real. So he doesn't look
yeah.
like a caricature of a maniac or,
And of
sadist.
course, it's fun. It's fun being able to play several different characters
Yeah.
uh, in one play, just because yeah, it gives you even more range to experiment.
Mhm. I always
Uh,
keep that in mind. So when I'm writing, I'm always like checking like which roles,
uh-huh.
if any, could be doubled.
Yeah.
Is there potential, especially
Uh-huh.
if, okay, so in your case, you're on stage like all the time, pretty much. But sometimes you have a smaller part, and you think, okay, but can I do it in a way that uh, maybe if there's this one scene here and this other scene there, and that's it. Maybe this actor could play two roles. You always keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And you've just made me think of another question here. Um, when it comes to well, characters such as Vanya, where then he's got to be this sort of negatively vibrant person, which is in some respects easier to show on stage because you can afford yourself the chance to move more and be much more active. Whereas if you're in front of a camera and you need to restrict your movements just because everything is much more pronounced. What made you decide to shoot this, or should I say, to stage it as a film play?
Okay. I should say the idea came to me, probably expected during the pandemic, because
Okay.
so the play was written. I wrote it in spring 2019, and edited over summer. And then, I always do that. I write it, I do my best, and then I leave it for a few months. And then I usually take it with me on one of my travels. I take my place
Right.
because for some reason, just being somewhere completely new and different, it helps to have this fresh look at it. So
Hmm.
that's what I usually do. So yeah, so it was winter 2020, like January, December, January. So I gave it a final look. I took it to Africa with me, and yeah, it was pretty. But then I wanted to just do it a normal way, just do it on stage in summer 2020, and of course, it never happened. And I think before, I was always a bit of a purist. It's like, oh, theatre should be live. But yeah, I do believe that. I do believe that the best way to do it is to just perform live. But
Hmm.
as I was sitting in my apartment, just during the quarantine, I just think I had this thought, okay, I can't do it live, but what if I find some other way?
What was the biggest pain in the rehearsal process for you?
Okay, I wouldn't say it's a pain, but yeah, you don't learn the lines, guys. That's so you prefer to improvise around them. Um,
I remember, no, I'd like to think that I learned the lines, but I learned them incorrectly. Like I'd inserted some sort of additional word unnecessarily that had just formed naturally in the course of my repeating and repetition at home, and then it just became the norm. So then when it actually came to the play, and I was like, okay, I know my lines. I'm off book. I don't need to look at the script. And then you'd be like, no, why are you saying this word? Stop saying actually.
no,
There's no actually.
okay, so I'm not fanatical about it. So just because I wrote it, it doesn't mean that I want it to stay exactly the same. So to be honest, I'm always open to like constructive suggestions. But sometimes it's just like one take is in a certain way, and then other take. It's essentially the same, but not quite. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But anyway, I think, but it, but the kind of the good side of that is that, at least in your case, you always look very real and kind of very truthful. So I don't even see you acting. It's like you just see Tom, and the way you're always very present in the scene, and kind of you always like watching other people, your screen partners, and reacting to them. So it feels very, like, very truthful. So if there's a trade-off between the lines being exactly the same, and every movement being rehearsed, and that sort of spontaneous acting, I would take that. So I'm perfectly fine. Just
Oh, okay.
more of a joke. But I have to say that the editor, Ksenia, is an old friend of mine, my oldest childhood friend. She's our editor as well. Like, she sends her warmest regards. What was the most difficult part of the process for you?
I guess uh, it feels more difficult for me to act real characters
Mm,
rather than some sort of persona.
okay.
Just because when it's a persona, the character traits are usually much more pronounced. When you're playing a real person, then there are, I think, a few more subtleties.
And by real person, you mean like an actual person,
I mean, like an actual person, like, well,
like a
let's say
historical figure,
when I'm talking about,
or just a character that's fictional but kind of more
well,
real.
let's say when I talk about the importance of being earnest
Mhm.
and Algernon, um, of course he's a person, like he's a human being, but he is part of a fictional work um, written by a very renowned writer who had a very, very acute sense of humor. And the way that he had depicted this character, he's a little bit of a clown. And it gave you something to just, something very tangible to hold on to, like as a grounding. Okay, I'm going to be able to play this guy in a very extravagant way, a little bit flamboyant, brisk movements, that sort of thing. And then, like, dial it down to somebody like Tom, where movements are much more subtle. It's just a case of, uh, especially as the way that we did it when it was in front of camera, you, in a way, you had to think much more, and like stay in the moment, really focus, really respond, and be in touch, in sync with your partner. Of course, you have to do that on stage, but in some respect, the benefit of being on stage is that it's like for 2 hours, you are just going to be this person, and that will never change. It gives you a little bit of an advantage, you know. Um, it makes it much easier to just reincarnate yourself for this period, forget about who you are, and completely devote yourself to this character, who you have, of course, been rehearsing to play for a good while. But when you're off stage and you're doing this on camera, like we were, you have these breaks when you have to reposition everything, to get the perfect shot, to get different shots. You need to make sure that you're doing the same every time. So that is something that's a challenge for me, is making sure that you stay true to that. Well, that, of course, is the essence of acting. And that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, as I said, I think there's this trade-off between, like, having everything
Yeah.
rehearsed to perfection, but then I think it could kill the kind of the live, the in the moment, that present aspect of it. If you
For
rehearse too much.
sure. For sure. Yeah, like
Yeah, I
at the
guess
end
it's
of the
like a
day,
balancing act of finding a moment, a place
yeah,
when it's rehearsed just enough. I think.
Yeah, like it's a given that the blocking needs to be more or less the same. I don't know. If you've opened the curtains in one scene and then you close the curtains in another scene, that's going to look a bit strange. But
Oh
but
yes.
yeah,
No, it's funny as a director, you need to be. I think the number one job uh, is just to be super present, and you need to keep. And I mean, like not a theater director, but the film director.
hmm
There's something
hmm
else to learn sometimes, like a hard way. Is that you need to watch everything.
yeah,
You need to be like 360 all the time,
yeah,
because the moment you
not just
decide that you don't have to watch in a certain direction. Like you think, oh, that's safe. Nothing is going to happen there. That's exactly the moment when you absolutely guaranteed to have one of those. What fresh hell is this moment? And believe me,
that's the moment when disaster strikes.
yes, absolutely, yeah. So it's always something that you thought is like 100% safe, and you, know, you don't really have to look that way.
hmm
That's when something happens.
But that's the beauty of it as well, isn't it? Like, I mean, you want to control everything, to make sure that the quality is good. But in those moments when mistakes happen, sometimes those clouds have silver linings, and something good can come out of it. Sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
That's,
No, I think many things came from just some spontaneous,
hmm
unexpected finds um, during the rehearsal process and during the filming as well.
Yeah. I've got one more question for you, and then
Okay,
I'll
and
let you
then
have
I
to go.
have a list of mine.
Where on earth did the reference about Scylla and Charybdis come from?
Reference what? I'm sorry.
About Scylla and Charybdis.
Oh, that's Greek.
I know, I
That's
get that
Greek
it's Greek, but
mythology.
why? Where? How did that pop into your head? What possessed you to try and write that in? How? Why did you go for that as opposed to anything else?
No, I use that expression.
Okay.
Yeah, but with okay, so with Greek mythology, I was just obsessed with it as a kid, and I had a book of Greek myths,
hmm
and I think my parents were ignorant because I wouldn't necessarily allow a 4-year old child to read Greek mythology. Um, but yeah, uh, that was one of my favorite books.
Right. Okay.
This volume of this myths, it was so exciting, and yeah, so mythology is definitely something that I'm interested in. But with that, it's just an expression that I use a lot.
No, I liked it. It was a good expression. I had to learn who they were because I didn't know beforehand.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so filming. I think
hmm
it was your first experience, was it? Wasn't
Yeah. Ultimately, that was my first feature length,
it?
should we
Okay.
say? Yeah.
So how was it? And you know, was it more difficult? Was it easier compared to theatre? Was it different at all?
Well, as I said earlier on, like the process, the acting process that you have to employ is definitely different. You have to be much more present, um, because every time you're like going off camera and then waiting for 40 minutes to come back, you can practice your lines as much as possible. You can speak to your cast members, but chances are for the entire shooting day, not everyone will be available, uh, or not everyone will be in the mindset, or maybe people just won't want to practice constantly, just because you can practice too much in such situations, and it becomes a little bit mechanical. So yeah, there was it was a little bit interesting just finding things to do. Like how I'm going to occupy my time in between shoots
So
and
obviously
in
you
positioning
don't walk
things.
you don't walk around in character.
No, you don't walk around in character. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe if I was more of a method actor, I could try that. I don't know. That's something to think about. Maybe I'll try that next time. But I mean, if your character's an asshole, maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
think walking around as Tom is all right.
as walking around as Tom would be
So it's
fine.
fine.
He'd be fine. He'd just be chilled in the back corner, to be honest,
Yeah,
having a glass of wine,
yeah.
most likely.
Yeah, but it'd be a nice
Um,
time.
yeah, no, well, I'd heard some stories of like nightmare shoots here, and expect that everything will be a shambles, organization and stuff like that. And I didn't really get that feeling this time. It was maybe I've led myself into a false sense of security, and the way it happened on our set was more an exception as opposed to the norm. But either way, no, it was a really, really enjoyable experience. I felt that everyone was really organized, really professional, really helpful, and everyone was in good spirits.
Yeah.
The
Oh, that's definitely that is also my job too. And I strongly believe that okay, say this no dicks and divas rule. you know, that's because I think that just one bad apple can spoil the whole experience for everybody. So to me, it's
yeah,
super
definitely.
important that everyone is not just professional, but also good people, and we
Yeah,
all kind of click together. Because in the end of the day, we're not shooting a Hollywood blockbuster movie with how many $1 billion budget. So it's about experience as well. So I think it's important that we not just do it, but just have fun in the process. That everybody has the positive experience in the process of doing it.
definitely, definitely.
So that is I think essential as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I try to make that a priority. So we just have the people who are this way
No,
and who
you
share that
create a
opinion.
really you
Yeah, so
create a
yeah,
really
no
positive
dicks and no
atmosphere.
divas, like strictly. So
I definitely didn't feel that.
yeah,
Everyone was calm but focused, and yeah, everything just it didn't seem like we had too many delays either. Um, we had a few setbacks with regards to sound, just because I remember there were people outside. But we seemed to handle that how we did inside, should I say, like on our actual set. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere.
well,
It
it was
definitely made
yeah.
me want to do it
With
again.
sound, there was some funny stories as well, because second AD, Nastya.
Hmm.
So she was responsible for talking to all other all the construction sites and cafes and everybody around set, uh,
Uh-huh.
and try to negotiate with them to lower the volume. So so we had a construction site just nearby, and so she went to talk to them, and she convinced them that making a film, and please can you please stop for a few hours. So yeah, fine. I think that they were actually looking for an excuse to have a few hours off, so they were all right. So she comes back and say, yeah, we can continue, like everything's gonna be quiet, and then we just action, and 2 minutes in, again the sounds of construction. You just went to them,
Hmm.
but there was a second construction site. We had two. So
Yeah,
she went. She had to negotiate with another one. But yeah, that happens.
yeah, I
Um,
remember it.
yeah, it's not the end of the world. I can assure you that it's going to be fine, but it just takes a bit more work during the
Uh-huh.
editing process. So it's adds complexity, but there's nothing that can't be cleaned and can't be solved. It's gonna be fine.
That's good.
Yeah. With filming, so you actually have, so you have all these different experiences. You have now filming experience, theater. You present for a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Obviously, some experience with public speaking. Like, I mean, I know that last summer you, how do we say it, like facilitated a wedding.
Yeah, I guess I did.
How do you say it? What is the right word? But anyway, okay, facilitated the wedding, which is, by the way, my personal nightmare. Like, I can do any audience, but ask me to speak at weddings or funerals, and I'm just like, just so uncomfortable. So you're my hero. But anyway, the question is, with all those different experiences, so how are they different, and what do you find most appealing? What feels more natural?
Hmm. So far, stage, I guess, feels the most natural to me. Uh, and I guess that kind of comes in the same time as like performing, because even if you're giving a speech at a wedding, you're still performing. Uh, you're not exactly being the everyday version of yourself who just sitting at home in your sweatpants. I don't know, watching TV or something. You're trying to evoke emotions in people. It's an important job, and the same on stage. You're trying to get reactions from them, be they positive or negative, or be they any reaction whatsoever. Just because different member of the audience can respond in different ways to any given moment in any particular play. That's why one day you can have raucous laughter in one moment that's not supposed to be funny, and you're like, oh, why did I get that laugh? And then the next time you expect it because it happened the last time and it doesn't.
Well, that's
So
the
that,
nature of live performances. You can never count
yeah,
on having the
but that's
same
the great
reaction
thing
at the
about them
same
as
time.
well. That's the great thing about them, is they're never the same, and therefore in some ways it means that it never becomes repetitive. It's very, very difficult for a play or any sort of theatrical performance to develop that element of tedium to it, just because most of the time something different will happen. Especially, let's say, if there's some sort of prop mess up or somebody forgets a line, that's when you really need to switch on and be like, right, okay, what do we do? But also
Do
we
you
need
have any
to.
stories related to that?
Oh yeah,
When something
sure.
went
Yeah.
wrong?
One time I was supposed to have a prop, a muffin on stage, because my character in this moment, he was offended by what the other person was saying. So he grabs this muffin that's supposed to be at the side of him, and he starts eating this fake muffin, and it wasn't there. And I like snatched to the side, and I snatched, and I was like, it's not there. And then I look at my hand, and I'm like, okay, well, there's no muffin there, and I need to say my line. And in order, let's say, for the scene to continue, he needs to my partner needs to watch me and react to this. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Um, so I just decided in this moment, because, like, again, you are this person. In some ways, like, it's much more easy to just become them. And I was like, okay, well, rather than thinking about this, just feel it, feel what you want to do. And I remember just shouting out, I was just like, well, I'm hungry. And I walked behind stage for a second and then grabbed a muffin. But because there was like a thoroughfare, instead of like, went round that way and then came round out the other side again to make it look more natural. And then continued on from that point. And we asked some of the people in the audience later, and they were like, no, it looked natural. Those are like, yeah, those are the times when it's the most fun. That's the
But the
biggest
audience,
adrenaline
but the
rush.
audience doesn't know.
Exactly. But you always have to act, under the pretext that the audience does know. You know, that they do see that something has gone wrong, because
No, most
otherwise,
times they don't, or they notice
yeah,
something, but they question, like, is it,
yeah.
is it a mistake, or was it supposed to be like that?
The funniest one I saw, it wasn't me. It was a guy. He'd forgotten his line, and instead of like, how do I put this? Trying to show to his partner he'd forgotten his line, he just walked around on the stage and touched props. Just like walked in a circle and was touching props.
Okay.
But the partner who he was acting with, she realised, so she came in to help him because she knew his line. But I didn't know, and it looked totally natural. It was just like a long pause, and they'd made it work. And then afterwards, they told me about it, and it was like hilarious. But it's like an inside joke, isn't it, for the cast? And then the audience are looking in, they don't know. So yeah, going back to your question, I guess still I feel most at home on stage, but I really enjoyed the process with Vera, and it's made me want to do more film work. And I have done more film work since then. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Tell us more about that.
I can't.
I
I'm
can't.
not allowed.
Okay.
But yeah, it was fun.
So everything's confidential.
Yeah.
Oh.
Alas. If you could go back to that day, well, the 3 days, what would you do differently?
What day?
The 3 days that we shot.
Oh, okay, the filming. That's a good question. I think I'd sleep more in advance. No, honestly. You don't even know where I saved you from. Because, okay, so I realized that there's a difference between the schedules of, theater people and film people.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, like, the theater crew in the project, but then we had the filming crew. They had nothing. Okay, so they have some experience with filming theater, but basically they're just film people, very, very experienced film camera people. And they wanted to start shooting at around something like 7 or 8 in the morning.
Wow.
That's what they normally do. So
Wow.
they chasing light, especially if they're filming outside, and especially if they're filming, for example, in right now the
Mm-hmm.
sunrise is like 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, they do start early. And of course, we were like theater people, like freaks, come out at night, and we start at 7. That's when the shows begin. So it's a very different
Brilliant.
schedule. So yeah, the first idea was like 7 or 8, and I just said no,
No, we're
no.
not doing that.
Your director needs her beauty sleep. Rapid fire them.
Okay.
Okay, so if you could summon the ghost of any famous person, it was seance. So who would that be?
God, if I could summon the ghost of any famous person. Is this any character in history?
Yeah, absolutely anyone.
Bulgakov.
Are you a fan of his?
Yeah, yeah.
Or do you have any
He wrote.
specific questions you want to pick his brain about?
I pick his brain about the Master and Margarita because it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I think many
Yeah,
people would love to do the same, just to ask a couple of
definitely.
questions
Yeah,
about that one.
yeah.
Okay, got it. So next one. If you could meet your character, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of years and tell him anything, like give him an advice, thank him, like anything at all, what would you tell him?
Get a marketing job in the theatre industry so he can at least help his wife who's passionate about what she does.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so now to the dilemmas. Some of them horny, others not so much.
Uh-huh.
So the idea is you only have to choose one of the two things, or you have to choose one, even
Okay.
if both are unappealing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
what you pick? Okay, so would you rather win an Oscar or an Olivier?
An Oscar.
An Oscar. All right. Would you rather get a line or trip over furniture on stage? In a non-traumatic way, like no broken bones.
Trip over furniture.
Have you ever done that before?
Nearly, very nearly.
Okay. Okay. So okay, with like more serious ones. Would you rather be over or underrated?
Oh God. Under. No, I'd rather be underrated.
Would you rather come off as someone with no taste or with no principles?
Hmm. Uh, no taste. That's a good one.
Make friends with a fool or a nihilist?
A fool.
Lose a friend or lie to them?
Lie to them.
Okay, all right. Okay, so present or future?
Mm-hmm. Present.
Present. Fame or talent?
Oh.
I raised the level of difficulty.
Fame.
Fame. Okay. Freedom or fulfillment?
Hmm. I feel like they're kind of the same thing. So like, okay, I'm gonna say
You can't answer be the both.
freedom. Freedom.
Freedom. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one, I think you probably see this one coming. A comedy or a tragedy?
Comedy, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's it. That's
All
my
right, they were good.
time passes. You know all the kind of the negative aspects, they kind of tend to fade from your memory, and
Remember the good stuff.
you remember the good stuff. Um, Although I have to say that the bad stuff is not that bad if you're a writer, because because so when everything goes right, you make good memories, right?
Yeah.
If everything goes wrong, those are the best stories. I want to ask you about the future, like what next for you, like. And by the way, what is your planning horizon? Do you even plan ahead or not? Because some people do,
Um,
some people don't. But acting wise, so do you have
my
any
plan,
aspirations?
my plan ahead for acting. I just want to get more roles, get more experience. Um, Difficult to talk about this because I'm in Moscow, and the obvious reasons why it's difficult to find roles. Um, yeah, I well, owing to the project that I've just done, I'll see what comes of that. If I get some recognition from that, hopefully, I made some good contacts recently, and I'm hoping to work with those. But yeah, I mean, on the horizon, I definitely don't want to give up on acting. I want to continue to develop, and I want to continue to challenge myself. And really, I'd like to, be able to say that I can do this permanently.